I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, good morning to all, and thank you for letting me to participate in this workshop. So today I'm going to talk about the HPC cluster, which we have installed in the Shastra University, which it comprises of IBM Power Systems and x86 systems. So what am I going to talk today is about brief introduction about the cluster and basic building components of the cluster, and about a little about the IBM Power 9 AC922 system and installed features that is in the that has been implemented in Shastra, and how to log in and how to use the schedulers and how to look into the status and all we have to cover today. So before getting into the cluster implementation which we have installed, I'm just going to give you the overview of the cluster. What is a cluster? So cluster is usually a group of something. In the field of computer, it's like a group of computers which is connected to a network, which is like it contains a homogeneous structure, and it operates at high speed, and it has some features like uh, huge data storage facility, and it has some high-speed interconnectivities, and it will be comprised of some MPI-based applications and so many other things. So what is a cluster? So it is like interconnected standalone computers, so which operates as a single. Let's say if I have 5 systems of each 20 core in it, so I can put it together into a single system and come up with 20 into 5 number of cores, which I can run my simulation there by connectively. So usually in the cluster, we will name all the systems as nodes. So each node will be of named like head node, login node, master node. So based on the service it applies. So head node or login node or master node is actually used to run the major services. So client node or storage node is like slave node is to like the run the services which is going to be part of a batch mode, in the sense uh, all we now use is like if we use a single system and if we run a simulation, it is like an interactive mode. So if we are going to run a simulation in multiple nodes, so we have to create a script, and we have to run that simulation using the batch mode. So batch mode is kind of like I'll tell the system to run like this with the help of these many nodes and these many resources. So that is what we are going to see today. So here you can see the Ethernet switch. So Ethernet switch is it's like act as a normal transport medium between these computers, just to interconnect the systems. So apart from that, while we are running the simulations, we will be transferring huge data packets. So for that, we need a high-speed interconnect, let's say InfiniBand switch. So InfiniBand switch is usually used for transferring the high-speed data over the networks. So for building a cluster, what are all the components required? Let's say I'm starting with a basic cluster here. So let's say hardware components. We may require two or more computer systems, which is also called as a server, and a network switch, probably an Ethernet switch to make a internal communication, and a low latency interconnect. Low latency interconnect in the sense InfiniBand switch. So InfiniBand switch, which I already told you that InfiniBand switch provides um, low latency for data transferring throughout the network. So softwares or services which is required is like we need an operating system, obviously, and the applications to run our simulations or code, and non-interactive authentication across the network. So why we need non-interactive authentication across the network in the sense? So if I need to travel from one node to another node, let's say if I'm going to go into another node as an SSH, we need some sort of uh, access or authority. So in the sense, uh, I need a password to log in into the system from my system to another system. So basically non-interactive authentication, what it does is, so it will pass such authentication methods so that there will be there will be no hindrance across the network. So between the nodes and between the switch and all the other compute nodes, from master node to all the other compute nodes in case. So we'll see about this non-interactive authentication and all. So later we need this shared storage or file system. So let's say if we have 100 nodes in a cluster, uh, and we need software to run in all the nodes, we will not install that software in all the 100 nodes. So obviously we will be having shared network or a shared storage, and we will put all our applications and all our data in that, and we will share across the network. So that is how shared storage or shared file system works. So, and then centralized user authentication. So what is centralized user authentication? So if we need to log in into the system, we need an user ID, and we need a password to access the system. Let's say if we have 100 systems and we need to log in into the 100 system, and we need to launch our process into 100 systems, we need not to create user IDs in all the 100 systems. We want to create an user ID in just only one system, and we will just populate it over the all the 100 systems, and we can log in into the systems, and where we can run all our processes and all the systems without any kind of hindrance or without any kind of delay. And for running our processes in all the systems, we need a job scheduler. Uh, we were having many kind of job schedulers like PBS, LSF, and other Slurm schedulers and all. So we'll see about all those things now. So before I'm going into the system architecture, I just want you to know about the key features of IBM Power9 AC922, which contains the latest Power9 processor designed especially for AI operations, and which can hold up to 6 NVIDIA cards, where we have 2 NVIDIA cards now in our Sastra system, and it can provide up to 5.6 input output operations than x86 servers. So moving on to, so this is the installed system, and these are the components which is installed. So let's say if I'm talking about IBM in the sense, so we have 3 servers in IBM, and which is equipped with CentOS 8.4, and we have a shared file system NFS and centralized authentication NAS, and we have a portable batch system here, and E4S and Ganglia monitoring too. Same like we have in x86 also, but here we have CentOS 7.9 with the GPFS shared file system. So this is the connectivity diagram. We have 3 nodes, which one act as a management or master node, sharing 1 TB of network files, system to all the systems across the network, which is connected to an Ethernet switch as well as the 200 Gbps low latency switch, which is also called as InfiniBand switch for faster data transfer. And this is the x86 system connectivity diagram. Here, a slight modification in the sense we have 8 TB of general parallel file system storage, which is mounted across the network. So, what is a network file system? So, network file system, how it actually works is part of a storage or part of a disk from a node or let's say a server is shared across the network, which can be accessed by all the other users on the network. So basically, it runs on two services. So NFS server service has to be run in server side, and NFS lock utility has to run in the compute nodes. One can share the folder using etc exports file, which is reside in the operating system, and we can grant access to the all the other users to mount over the network. Let's say if I'm going to mount my file system in some 10 system which has a series of IP which starts with 10.1.1, I can mention it here in the etc exports so that only that system can access my files over the network. So NFS and NIS is like we can't separate it because so if I'm going to share my user ID to all the nodes across the network, obviously I'm going to share my folder across the network because I'm going to access my files and folders even in that network. So for that, we need NIS. Nowadays, we have LDAP and other domain authentications. So NIS is like a traditional authentication method, which is also called as Yellow Pages earlier. And it actually works on remote procedure call based, which provides a centralized authentication. And we can differentiate the NIS in terms of master, slave, and client. Let's say all my server related services will run in the master node, and slave node will act as a backup or some kind of redundancy purpose. And the client will have access to the master, and we can access our users from the master directly. So usually it's like a centralized authentication, where NFS is like a centralized storage providing concept. NIS is like a centralized authentication concept, where user information is shared across the network. So let me talk about the services here. We have four major services that has to be run if we need to use NIS. YP serve, YP bind, YP XFRD, and YP password. YP serve, YP XFRD, and YP password service has to run in master node alone. YP bind has to be run in both master as well as all the compute nodes. Let me give a small intro on this GPFS system which we have implemented in x86. So it's like a huge clustered file system which is used in almost every kind of aspects. So where we can use multiple disks and put it into a single file system to share across the network. So which provides high scalable and as well as the high availability across the HPC cluster. Moving on to, I'm just going to give a little bit info on this portable batch system. So portable batch system is like a job scheduler, which enables us to run our code across our network. We can include all the resources which we need in a script file, and we can launch it as a job, and we can get an output from that. So how PBS works in the sense, so it has four major services like PBS server, PBS communication, PBS scheduling, and PBS map. So PBS server, PBS communication, and PBS scheduler service has to run in the master node, which enables us to launch our jobs from our user ID. And compute nodes has to run the PBS mom daemon, so which will execute our code in all the compute nodes, and it will put it together and it will get back to the server. For running our simulation, we need a script which comprises of all the required parameters that we need to mention. So PBS versus LFS. Why I have included this slide, because I have heard that you are a little bit familiar with LFS, so I'm going with this comparison here. Uh, for example, if we need to submit a job, we'll be using bsub command in the LSF. In case of PBS, we need to use qsub command. It's like a similar thing only. Mm. And let's say if we want to delete a job, or if we want to cancel a job, we need to implicate a command called qdel here. And if we want to check the status of the job, we need to put qstart command. And most probably used command is like pbs nodes -l. So it's like if we need to check the node status, we can use that command. And let me talk about the environment variables. So PBS job ID, PBS for work directory is like it is already it's like a preloaded environment variable. When you just launch your job, all these environment variables will be set. Let's say if PBS O work directory is like your current working directory from which you are going to launch your job. And PBS node file is like if you are going to launch your job, and if you are going to run in a multiple node, PBS node file is required to mention that node list. So what PBS node file will have is the number of nodes which is allocated for your job at the runtime. And some of the important PBS job specifications are, if I need to mention the node count, I will use -l command, space nodes equal to count. If I need to run my job in 2 nodes, I will mention nodes equal to 2. If I need to run in 1 node, I will mention as 1. PPN in the sense processor per node. Let's say if I am running a parallel job where I have a parallel code, and I will be mentioning the number of CPUs I am going to utilize here. And some of the important aspects here are CPU count, wall clock limit. I can usually set my wall time, for how many hours I need to run this code, and where I should get my output file, and where I should get my error file, and how it has to be accessed. Like that, I can mention anything I want in the PBS. So ES4RS SPAC. So I think Dr. Samir has already given a brief intro on this. I'm moving to the slide. Next slide. So we have implemented this Ganglia monitoring tool also, which will be used to monitor all the servers in the network. Gmetad daemon is like a server related daemon which will pick up all the status from the nodes using gmod daemon. It's like a representation or visualization of data in the sense CPU usage or some kind of a load usage, and some kind of uh, services where we can implicate it. It's actually a monitoring tool for the administrator to check the status of nodes and health of the node. And obviously, it is used in many universities across the world, and it can handle up to 2,000 nodes. So this is just a snapshot of what we have in Sastra. Actually, we have six systems in total. That comprises of 224 CPUs in total. This is like CPU load for last hour, CPU load for all the systems which is reside in the cluster. We can also check the individual node status here. So moving on to, I'm going to show how to log in into the system and how to launch a job here. And I'm going to differentiate what is interactive run and what is batch run, and how to implement the batch run here, and a little bit about the uh, status of the system and its services. First, let me connect with the VPN. So if you have any questions in the presentation, you can ask. I'll be happy to answer. So I am having a user ID named Sastra in our institute cluster. So I am now logged in into the IBM power system, where we have 128 CPUs and 2 NVIDIA Tesla V100 GPUs in it. So what I have done is I have included all the nodes into the PBS, so which will tell you the status of the CPUs. And all the other resources are available. So here I'm having a simple C program. I'm going to compile this code using a GCC compiler, where I got the output as a.out. So I run this a.out, I will get an output from that code. So this is like an interactive run. So what am I going to do is I need to run this code in the cluster. So what I will do is, so I will create a script file where it tells all the details of resources and all
Sorry,
the other.
Anand, am I audible? Your screen is not visible, Anand. It's in the thank you slide actually.
Oh, is it one? Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for that. So I'm explaining it again. So I have just now logged in into the Sastra system. So I'm just checking the CPU status here, and I'm checking the GPU status here, and I'm checking the status of PBS which we have here. So here you can see the status of all the resources available in the node. What am I going to do is, so here I have a simple C program. I'm going to compile this C program and I'm going to run this program. So here I got the output. This is like an interactive run. If I need to run this program in the cluster, means I have to have a PBS script where it contains all the inputs in the sense where my log file has to be, and where my error file has to be, and how many nodes I have to use, and how many processes I have to use. And this is like just a name of the job which I am going to run. It's just for my reference. If I am going to run multiple jobs, I will be naming this accordingly. And this is like a PBS directive, PBS environment variable, which tells you just go inside this folder and you just run this job like that. It will tell. What I have done here is I'm just going to add it here in the script /a.out. So I'm going to concatenate my result, my output in the result text file. So right now I'm deleting this. For submitting our job, we need to implicate the command qsub. So once we submit the job, so we can check the status of a running job using qstart command. So it is telling that it's running in one of the compute nodes and in the 0th core. This is my job ID, and this is the username which I have launched my job from. And this is the queue name. This is a default queue called batch. And my job name is serial_test, which I have included in the script file. And how many nodes I have used and how many tasks I have used. I have not given any memory, so that memory space is like null. And required time by default, it's one minute. And status, this is status, and it's telling it's running. So it's not showing anything because it has completed the run. So here I can see the log file generated and error file generated. Also a.out, the result generated. So from this we can get the output. So here we have only this file before submitting the job. After a successful run, we have this file generated. So this is like a serial job. Serial job in the sense I'm just going to run a code in one node or one core, in the sense it's like a serial job. Let me show you the example of a parallel case. Here I have the same hello world program, but with a little bit modification of MPI, which tells us which thread is running in which core. So this is my script file. The only modification I have done is I have just loaded MVA MPI compiler using SPAC, and then I'm compiling it and creating an output file called par.out, and I'm again using MPI run to run it in parallel among all the 128 CPUs. if I say 128 CPUs, the naming will be from 0 to 128, so that you can check from the output which we get. So as I mentioned earlier, I need to mention the host file also. Host file in the sense number of nodes or number of cores which has to be initiated during the runtime. And then I'm just adding this MPI variable here to avoid the warnings. And then I'm going to run this, and I'm going to get the output in the par_result. So again, for submitting the command, I'm using qsub command to submit the script file. So I'm going to check the status. So it is telling that job ID is 45 and it is running in this many cores, and the username from which I have submitted this job. Again, the queue name, the job name, the test, which I have included here in the script file, and session ID, nodes, and the task from the nodes. So it has completed the run here and generated the output files. So if you check the par.result, so you can see this thread has run in the ninth core out of 128 cores. So it means each thread will core will occupy each thread will occupy each core, and it will run and it will come out. So MPI is like it will chunk the code, and it will uh, get the code and get the thread into the core, and it will process it, and it will combine all the processes back, and it will provide us a single output. So this is what it means. Is there any questions here? I hope no. Sriram sir, any questions? So moving on to SPAC, let me show how to list the packages and how to install the packages, which is already given in detail by Dr. Samir. First of all, let me show you what are all the packages that has been installed through SPAC in the IBM Power System. So these are the packages, overall 68 packages that has been installed here. So if I need to check for the available packages for installation, I can use a command called package list, which I can see n number of packages available for installation. I think more than 6,000 packages are available to install. Let's say if I need to install a package from this list, so I'll say SPAC install zip. So it's like an easy software management tool where we can install and where we can load all the packages. If I want to load the install package, I can use this command. So now that is the package is load. Likewise, if we need any kind of package, we can install and we can load it through inspect. So we have a few questions from chat box. Is there any document available to make the newbie familiar to this cluster access right from the login to use of various commands? Yes, we do have. We will be sharing it with you once this workshop finished. Is there any other questions from audience or any other questions from participants? Ganesh sir, over to you.
Yeah. So what you can, Anand, what you can say is a list of packages that you have installed. You can just recover it once again and where it is going to be used. That will give some insight into the overall ecosystem of the cluster.
Okay.
And after that, I will take over. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this SPAC is like loading and unloading does not need root access or admin access. For installing or removing the software is only we need this root access. Let's say if I need to unload, sorry, if I need to remove the installed software. So I just need to use this command. SPAC remove zip 3.0. Okay. So let me activate the income because it shows some error. Okay, I think ENV is not active, no problem. So let me move into the user account again and let me show how to load the packages from user ID. So if I want to load OpenMPA, so I'll be using this command SPAC load OpenMPA at 4.4.1 version. So how can I check whether it's loaded or not? So using this command, which MPA run. So which MPA run is like, it will tell you which command is from which path. So our SPAC resides in user apps folder, so that it is telling it is inside the MPA run command is residing in this folder. So here you can see all the other MPA commands. So also so I have, so if I if I install a specific software, all the libraries which depends on that specific software will also be installed in the same. So that we will be having multiple number of softwares for our visibility here. So that's it from my end. Is there any other queries?
No, there are no further queries, it seems. I think the members are asking for some written document that captures on how.
We have a detailed document which explains.
Yeah, that I will host it in the HPC web portal itself, so that anybody who wants to access the web portal can actually see the commands and the help file and then start executing. So,
Sure.
so that's it. And this ecosystem is available at Shastra. We have got varieties of tools and hybrid and nature of cluster we have. And I would appreciate if the faculty members and students make use of this infrastructure and start publishing good number of articles, research articles. And I'm sure that this ecosystem will pave way for the faculty members to design and implement technologies that can result in patents as well. So with that note, I would like to conclude the forenoon session. Before we break for lunch, anything else anybody would like to share? So if there is nothing to be shared, I don't find anything in the chat. So thank you very much for your patient listening. I would, let's now break for lunch. By 12, we are stopping. By 1:30, we will reassemble here. The next speaker is from IBM, Muthu Muttaya. He is an expert. He has got 20 plus years of experience in IBM, and he will be discussing on spectrum scale features, and that is again going to be an add-on to the portfolio of features that our HPC has. And please reassemble by 1:30 without fail. We'll now break for lunch. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye for now.